Okay. So I also talk kind of fast, so if you need me to slow down or anything, please let me know. So today we're going to be discussing managing budgets and ledgers. I also have a little bit about fundraising since I know that's a big part of the treasury role. And you can't really continue the existence of our chapter without fundraising. So we'll hop right into it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lyric McVoy. I am a chapter visitation associate, and I'm also a life member from the Gamma Kappa chapter from the University of Connecticut. Um, so our objective for today is to provide resources and strategies for tracking chapter financial information. That's our big one. That is the paperwork part, in my opinion, is the biggest job of the treasurer, not just the execution of fundraisers. So, from our national constitution, what is a treasurer? The treasurer shall control the receipts and disbursements of all monies of the chapter and shall submit recommendations concerning the financial policies of the chapter as may be required. The treasurer shall sign all checks for monies disbursed. In addition, the treasurer shall be responsible for the collection of the monies for an ordering of all regalia from the national executive director of the sorority. So, in short, you are the keeper of the bank account. You are the person that the chapter goes to when we need to collect money and distribute money. So, um, big big one to start with, you are maintaining your chapter's finances. So your budget is created by you. It's ultimately voted on by the chapter, and we'll get into how that works. But ultimately, you are responsible for creating the budget, noting how much is actually spent versus what you proposed, and if there are any big shifts, you are the person accounting for that, bringing it to the chapter and discussing it. Your ledger is your record of all transactions. That is literally just like a mega receipt where you put every single thing you're purchasing, all the money you're gaining, and all the money you're putting out. And then last, fundraisers. Those are the events to make your money to continue working as a chapter to be able to provide that programming wherever you may be putting your money. You also submit your budget to the district counselors, and you would go over any feedback with them. You ensure chapter and individual dues are paid on time. We can get into some strategies about that because I know that can be a difficult spot for some folks. And then knowing what can and can't be supported with funds. So, for instance, you cannot be paying membership dues with fundraised items. However, you could support anything that your band is doing, and we can get into that more. You would also sign off on checks and monitor reimbursements. Um, that would be done. Your reimbursements are voted on at the chapter level. And we can talk about that as well. And then anything else the chapter might deem appropriate for the role. So that'll depend specifically on your chapter. So, for instance, my chapter ran fundraisers through an organization on campus. I was the point of contact for that, and every treasurer was. So, as actives, if I have anyone in here who is not necessarily the treasurer, but is looking to support their treasurer, here are some ways that you can do that. First off, please pay your dues on time. This avoids stress on their end. It also avoids late fees. Late fees can really pile up if we let them just kind of sit and marinate. So let's try to avoid that. Get your dues in as soon as you can. Next is running and or supporting fundraising efforts. Um, the treasurer is not the only person necessarily who should be doing all the fundraising, come up with an execution. A lot of chapters will have a Ways and Means chair, a Ways and Means or fundraising committee, and this is a good way to support that treasurer so they're not taking all of that on their own because that can be a lot. Reviewing the budget and ledger to double check accuracy. These should be open documents for every member of the chapter to look at, and looking to make sure that everything is up to date or that everything makes sense, especially before you get to a chapter meeting, is very helpful. And then last is researching new fundraiser ideas. The treasurer, they can be really on top of that, but they are also one person. So providing those different perspectives can be super helpful, especially as you go throughout the year and get into some of those more hectic seasons since college is crazy as it is without all the band stuff. Some shoulds and should nots. Um, on the should side, you should be updating the chapter's budget for each meeting. The big things you'll want to note weekly or bi-weekly, however often your chapter's meeting, is what came into the account, what left the account, and what the current balance is. That should be read every single time so that people know where the money is going, how it's being spent, and if you're getting money, where that came from and what it may be used for if that discussion is coming up. You should be following all sorority and university guidelines. That's going to look different at each university. So please make sure that if your university is hosting any kind of workshops or information sessions related to being a treasurer, that you are attending those. Not all universities require them, but if they have that resource, I would really take advantage of it, because it can really open you and your chapter up to new opportunities, both to receive money from the university and to know what is available to you as a resource. Know how and when to request reimbursements with your university. That goes along with following your guidelines, attending meetings as needed. Really try to get in touch with, if it's your Greek Life office or your Office of Student Affairs, make sure that you're checking in with them regularly and you know what you can ask for reimbursements on. The next one, require 2 signatures on all written checks. This is to make sure that everyone, especially on the executive board, is on the same page. We know where money is going, how it's being spent, and that can be presented to the chapter. Everything stays above board. And then keep records for at least 7 years for auditing purposes. That's your ledger. So your ledger should not just be from this year, it should be from the past couple years. And you can either put that all on the same ledger or you can make a page for each fiscal year. Either way, everything should be together. And that way, again, if you're audited or you have a question that can be answered by a previous ledger, you have access to that information. Some should nots. Do not overcommit chapter funds to different projects. It's very easy to say, oh, yes, we can spend money on this, that, and the third. But if you don't have the money to back that up, that can become an issue, especially if you're writing a check without regularly checking the account. You should not withdraw cash without another person present. That should be a trip for yourself and your chair, or yourself and another member of the executive board. That way, everybody is on the same page. We know what is being withdrawn. And then, of course, that should be reflected into the ledger. You should not be submitting chapter dues late. Do not incur that late fee. This is one that you can do. You should be I would start even now. I would have started at the end of last semester, hounding folks that you know are coming back to make sure that they are paying their dues on time. You should not be linking a Venmo, a Cash App, anything like that to a member's personal account. You can set up a PayPal for nonprofits. There are PayPals for nonprofits. There's an EIN number for each chapter. I believe it is in Opus. Please set that up. Do not have money going in and out through personal accounts. That is technically illegal. Please don't do that. And then last, please do not use funds for things that don't promote please don't use funds for things that don't promote our values. Sorry, double negative. Fundraising should be for the express purpose of completing chapter-related service projects or items for the larger band program. For instance, if your band is putting together a wider service event, that is something TBS can participate in. That's something KKSI or any music organization could participate in. You wouldn't put funds toward like a random student group on campus that is asking for money. That's not our purview. That would come from your personal account. So, what is the budget? A budget is an estimate of income and expenses that occur in various areas over a specific time frame. To create an accurate budget, parameters must be set. The major parameters of the budget can be addressed by answering these questions, and this is kind of what I recommend using to guide your thinking while you're creating your budget. What is the purpose of the budget? And what time frame does the budget cover? And that's because you really don't just have one budget and that's it. You have multiple budgets throughout the year. You have your main chapter budget, you have your officer budgets, but you'll also have event budgets. So if you do a specific fundraiser that you need to purchase equipment for, or like a Candygram, you need to purchase candy and bags to put the candy in, you need to have an idea of how much is going to go out and how much you're expected to come in. And that also has a closed time frame. You open Candygrams at a certain point, and then you pass them out at another, and then you're done. So that's what it means. So some things are going to be longer, like the whole year. Some things are going to be a little shorter. Some little bits and pieces before we move on. Budgets are estimates. They are plans. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. Sometimes it's nice. We plan to spend $1,000 on something, and we only spent like $750, and we get to keep the extra $250 in the account. Sometimes we budget $500 for something and then we go over 700 to 700. And so we have that negative 200 that we need to account for. If justifiable deviations from the approved budget are necessary, make sure that you are presenting this to the chapter and obtaining approval for the deviation. The budget, even though it is under the purview of the treasurer, it is something voted on by the entire chapter. So make sure that you are keeping them constantly in the know about any deviations, positive as in saving money and negative as in losing money. Some notes should accompany the differences from the actual income expenses to the budgeted income expenses so that your future treasurer can plan accordingly. If you have been over budgeting for a service project, please make sure that you note that that was over budgeted for and why you think that happened. That's super helpful to whoever looks at that budget in the future. So, touched on it a little bit before, but we're going to kind of dive in a little bit more right now. There are 3 kinds of budgets. You have your annual budget, and that's like an umbrella. That's like your biggest umbrella up top. That is your entire year for the chapter. That includes like everything, including like officer budgets. And then you'll have a general allotment for activities. And then you would put your specific activity budgets under that. So the next one is activities. Those are under your umbrella. And those are specific things that your chapter funds. So that could be band day. That could be funds for convention. That could be fundraisers that you need to purchase supplies for. That could be a service event you need to purchase supplies for. So that would be your activity budget. And then you have your officer budget, and that's what the officer needs to complete their term effectively. So if, again, you have a regular fundraiser that the treasurer runs, that would fall under the treasurer's budget. If the VP of service or special projects has a specific event that they run that they need to purchase supplies for, that's what would be there. If the VP of membership would need to purchase certain things for an activity they plan on doing, like as part of the process, or need supplies for the process for whatever reason, that would go into the officer budget. Whatever they would need to purchase to run their office effectively. That might not be that much. It could be a little bit more. Again, this would be discussed as an officer board and then brought to the chapter and discussed, amended, voted on. So, our budget creation. The treasurer starts with compiling all the information of what officers and committees may need, what the prior budgets looked like from previous years, excuse me, and an estimate of what the income of the chapter will be. So if I know my chapter does 3 fundraisers every year and we make an average of $400 from those, I am putting that in. If I know every year the chapter spends $200 helping out to prepare for band day that our band does every year, I'm putting those items in the budget, and those should be in prior budgets for us to kind of just copy and paste right over. After you compile that information and you organize it into your new budget, you review and revise all of that into a new proposed yearly budget. Then you go to your general chapter meeting and you present the proposal. Revisions are made. Then the budget is approved by the chapter as a whole. You need the approval of the chapter. You can't just kind of run with whatever you want to do. It's very important that you're making sure to get their feedback, that your revising is needed, and that everyone on the chapter is on the same page about where and what money is going toward. So here is a budget template. Hopefully you are already using it, but if you're not, that's okay. You can start today. You can see here it says budgeted, actual, over, under, proposed. So budgeted is what you plan to spend. Your actual is what you actually spent. Your over, under is how much you saved or how much you lost. And then I recommend proposing. Can you keep the number the same? Should the number be higher? Should the number be lower? You also have over in your columns over here, you have beginning available cash balance. So how much do you have available on hand? Operating income. So how much are you going to need to spend to work? Or how much are you going to bring in? Excuse me. Operating expenses is how much is going to go out. And then difference in income and expense. That's your big one. You want to have that as minimal as possible. There may be some deviation, but you want to try and have that as small as possible in order to make sure that we are not overspending on something or somewhere. Now, here you can see, this is like, sorry, there we go. As you can see, we have income sources. You would put all of your income sources over here. And then same thing, budgeted, actual, over, under, proposal. And then expenses. So officer allowance, those are your officer budgets. You can go into more detail on a separate page, but here you would just put what is budgeted for them and what their actual is. Then you have committee chair allowances as needed, chapter expenses as needed, fundraising expenses as needed. So you would have these in multiple different tabs. This is like your overview. This page is like your general income, budgeted, actual, and then your expenses. This is what a ledger looks like. The ledger is a lot more simple. The budget, get a little fancy. This, nice and simple. The check number or cash withdrawal, you need to document the check number that was written. So if you've ever seen a check, and I'm going to assume that we have, but maybe we haven't, there's a number on the check. It's individual to each check. It's like at the top right, typically. You write that number down. You should also be writing the date of the cash withdrawal in this column. So make sure you're dating everything so you know when in and out is happening. In the B column, that's the amount of money for each check or withdrawal. Tell me who it is written to or to whom the cash was given. The purpose is why the money had to be put out, and then the part of the budget that this expense lines up with. So which line item? So let's say we're having a band event. I'm going to put 001. It's the very first check in the book. The amount, I gave $200. The check was written to the band director. I would put my band director's name. The purpose, this is for band day to supply funds for the event. And then certain line item that would come out of most likely chapter expenses, if that's something you budget for the chapter every single year. That's how you would do it. And this, again, should go for at least 7 years. If your chapter is younger than 7 years, I know you won't be back that far. If your chapter is 7 years or older, you should have all of that to reflect this. And both your budget and your ledger should be in those tbsigma.org files. They should be in your drive so that you always have access to them and that it goes from officer board to officer board. So that way, in 7 years from now, when they need year 7 on their ledger, your chapter can check without having to scramble and try and figure out where it is. That's a lot. Do we have any questions before I keep moving? All right. I'm going to keep moving. You can put this in chat if you would like. What are some fundraisers your chapter has done? And if you do a couple, which one did you find the most successful? Seeing and hearing nothing, I'm going to keep moving. That is okay. Ooh, there we go. So here are some fundraiser ideas that I've compiled. These are all fundraisers that actual chapters are doing out there in the TB Sigma world. So if you would like some resources on this, let me know and I can find you people to connect with. But in short, we have Penny Wars. I'm sure this is familiar from a lot of us if we went to grade school, which I think most of us did. That is where pennies are positive points, silver is negative points, and you try to see who can get the most. You can divide it by like grade, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, plus. You can do it by section. You could do it by whatever arbitrary line that you would like to draw it on. But the more competition you can put in, the better. Ooh, yes. Okay. Valentine's Day flower fundraiser for band members, show shirt design competition and fundraiser, which is our most profitable, and restaurant nights. Those are all awesome. I love the restaurant night one. That's a really good way to also build community. And I found that that one is accessible throughout all of our districts. Show shirt design, I love that one. That's really cool that you guys have that opportunity. That's awesome. And then the Valentine's Day flower fundraiser, also very cool. I like that. It feels very Candy Grams, but appropriate, like seasonally appropriate. Breakfast fundraiser, that also sounds great. I love fundraisers that double as community available events, kind of getting everyone out there. I think it's cool to, I don't love the phrase kill two birds with one stone, but kill two birds with one stone of not raising money, but also building community within either your band or your wider collegiate community. Thank you for sharing. Next we have car wash. That one's a pretty self-explanatory one. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with this. I know a lot of schools do them as well. You can also do merch sales, which we heard about the t-shirt competition, the show shirt competition. Um, Cool. Stadium cleanups are another way. For some of us, that's a service opportunity, and for some of us, that's going to be a fundraising opportunity. It really depends on how your stadium works, so to speak. So please contact the appropriate people on campus, unless you were like me and you went to a college where your stadium was not on campus and that's out of your control. But if you have that opportunity, it can be a good way, either a service opportunity if they're not looking to pay you, or a fundraising opportunity. So it's going to depend again on your school. Concession stands, again, another good way to get out into the community. I'm always a fan of getting TB Sigma out and participating in the community, and being those good role models for the people we interact with. And then last, candygrams. Again, that one feels a little self-explanatory. Pay for candy, put it in a bag, deliver them on a game day or on Halloween or on whichever event you decide to hand them out on. And I love that flower idea. That's very in a similar vein, handing out flowers. I know some schools also will do like, or at least the University of Connecticut, and I know some schools in our area would do food, like a food gram. So you could like pay to have someone bring like fried Oreos or cookies that were made by the chapter to another person. So again, food. People love food. I love food. Great way to get some money. Next, you have virtual fundraisers. I know we're like largely out of the COVID era, but I think, took away from that sometimes virtual, kind of good, kind of helpful. So you can do a game or trivia night virtually. You can also do those in person. A lot of these can be done in person, but the virtual option is also there in case that's easier or makes more sense for the moment. So a game or a trivia night, get a couple of Jackbox games going, invite people in, charge a cover fee, and have that be a way to bring in some money. And that's also generally low cost, especially if someone already owns those Jackbox games. Next is a silent auction. Um, those can be a little easier to run online, but you can also do them in person. And that's a great way to auction off, again, baked goods. Everyone's into those, but also like handmade pieces. Maybe you have some like show shirts or letters that you're looking to get out there. Good way to do that. A virtual 5K, TBSAA does this one, so and we know it works, so you can also do that at the chapter level. Merch sales, which we had someone discuss, so awesome. We already have some people taking advantage of that. And then a talent show, again, great one that can be done in person or transition to online, or that can be done hybrid. A good way to participate in that larger either band community or college community by bringing people together to discuss, to show off their talents and kind of like get to know each other in this new and interesting way. So how do you make a successful excuse me, how do you make a successful fundraiser? We'll discuss this a little bit in detail, but does anyone want to share what they do at the chapter or district level to try to ensure a successful fundraiser? And I have chat open. Plan, plan, plan. Also being flexible. Thank you, Caitlin. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And we will discuss that more. But those are like the two big ones. Plan, flexible. And I think that goes for a lot of what we do in TBS. We got to be planned, but we also got to be flexible. All right. I'll keep moving. But of course, if you put anything in chat, I will hop right over and take a look at that. So we are going to use the who, what, when, where, why, and how. I am an English teacher in my non-TB Sigma life. And the 5 W's and H's, what I call them, those are like your lifeline. No matter what you're doing, you got to be able to identify the W's and your H. So, who are we? As in, not just we're Tau Beta Sigma Omega Omega chapter. What like who are we as a group of people? What kind of resources are we bringing to the table? Who is our audience? So are you doing this for just the band? Is this something the wider university or community could participate into? Identify that before you start working, because something for just the band is going to look something way different than something for especially a big school with 20, 30,000 students potentially there. Who do we need to contact? This is especially if you need to reserve rooms, please be doing that at like stage 1 and 2. Who do you need to contact and what do you need to get to them? Next is who will be leading the effort. Yes, you have that treasurer. Treasurer is typically over fundraising, but if you have a committee, you have a chair, or you even have a general audience member of the chapter who would like to participate, make sure that you know who is going to be in charge. And then last, who will be available to attend. So that's from the chapter side. Who is going to be like running the event essentially? Because if it's only 1 or 2 people and we're trying to run a talent show, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not enough people. You need to know how many people you have versus what kind of event you're going to run. Next is what? So what are we raising money for? Are we raising money for band day? Are we raising money for a service event that we're trying to do? Make sure you identify that, because not only do you need to know that for your own personal information, it's also good to communicate that to who's coming to the fundraiser. I know if I see a fundraiser, when I saw them on campus, when I see them at the school I work at, I'm like, oh, what are you raising money for? Please have an answer other than we need money. That doesn't always come off super great. And then what are you selling or providing? So if it's something like Candy Grams, what are you providing? What kind of candy are you getting? Why are you getting it? If it's a service, what service is it? What are we cleaning up the stands? Well, when we're cleaning up the stands, what does that look like? Are we picking up trash or are we like also wiping down the seats? Know that in advance. What are we allowed to sell or provide? Please make sure you're checking your university and Tau Beta Sigma guidelines. Do not be selling anything that is not allowed or providing a service that is not allowed. I'm sure you can get creative in your brains with what we wouldn't be allowed to do, but also be double checking all that paperwork. Don't get yourself into unnecessary situations. And then last, what potential roadblocks are there? What are any barriers to success that you can identify now and mitigate for so that you aren't dealing with them in the moment as it comes up without any preparation? Next, we have when. First one, when is the event? When are we doing this? When is everyone available to help out? Please make sure you're scheduling around not just like when is it cool to have an event, but when you can have members of the chapter either set it up, run it, or clean it up. Maybe someone can't be there for all 3 steps, but if someone can be there for one, we want to include them. When do we need to buy supplies by? So for Candy Grams, you're going to want to get those sooner rather than later, especially if you're doing it around a holiday like Halloween or Valentine's Day, where a lot of people are purchasing candy. Want to make sure you have it so you don't go to the shelves of the CVS and it's empty. If you would need to reschedule, if this is maybe something that requires a rain date, maybe it's an outdoor activity, and you might have a rain check day. Make sure you know when that's going to be. Make sure that's communicated out so that people know, like, hey, if this happens, this is when we'll have it. Don't worry, we're still going to try and do it. And then when is marketing going out? That's when you want to work with whoever has charge of your social media, your secretary, your communications chair, however you do it at the chapter level. Make sure you're working with them so that everything is communicated effectively, not just for when, but we'll get into it, where, and any other logistical details that would need to be communicated, especially for a higher level event like a talent show where people need to coordinate. So where can we hold the event? Especially if you are hosting on campus, you need to make sure that you are reserving those rooms or spaces wherever you need to be as soon as possible. Not reserving the space, if it is a space that can be reserved, runs the risk of you showing up and there are already people there. If it's a space that cannot be reserved, I would advise against going into a space that cannot be reserved, like an open field or somewhere that you know is popular on campus that is kind of a free for all, because that's really going to affect your day of planning. Make sure it's somewhere that you can put your stuff down and leave it and you know it's not going to be moved. You know you have access to the space. Where can you gather supplies? That's going to look different at every college and university. I know some universities have like band programs give like a locker to their TB Sigma and or KK side chapters. Other times we're kind of just all stashing it in our dorm rooms and figuring out where to move it to. So make sure that you're knowing where you can put those supplies before you get to the event. Where have we been before? That means like, where have you had hosted or held events that was successful? Are there certain areas of campus, or is there like a park off campus that you can reserve space and time for that we know is effective? Or, and conversely, are there places we know don't work? Maybe for those restaurant fundraisers, we know there's a restaurant that's really, really small and people really, really want to come out to this fundraiser. Maybe we don't pick that place and we pick a place that can accommodate more people. Then last, where can the event be accessible? So that's not just like, can people get there? It's also what kind of needs and accessibility points do we have? So if we have a band member who maybe uses a mobility aid or a wheelchair who expresses interest in this event, is this event going to be accessible, and how can we make it accessible to them? So just all those little points. Literally, where will it be accessed, but also how can people access? And that delves over into our H a little bit. Why? We touched on this in what a little bit, but like, why do we need this money? We should not be fundraising without a purpose. We should always have in mind where that money is going to go. And if we don't, we need to maybe take a step back and think through why we're fundraising to begin with. Why is this event important? So why should people come to your event? Why should I come to watch your talent show? Why should I give you money for this Candygram? Make sure to incentivize people either participating in an event or giving you their money in exchange for a good or service. Make sure you're really having that nailed out. Again, not just for your own benefit, but so if people are asking you about it, you have a response. And why do we have this reoccurring event if it is a reoccurring event? So a lot of bands around Halloween, Candygrams. Why are we having this recurring event? Well, we know we make money off of Candygrams every year, and it's Halloween, 'tis the season. Similar to that, Valentine's Day flower fundraiser. Valentine's happens every year. People like to get flowers, 'tis the season. It's a way for the chapter to make some money consistently. And then last, but not least, certainly not least, is how. How can we divide the workload? So who can take on what? Know the strengths of the people in your chapter and what they're good at, and that will help lead you through dividing the workload. How should we market this to our audience? So we've already touched a little on social media. That's a big place, especially places like Instagram. That's a huge way that college students, I know I don't have social media, but I know it's important. It's a great way to advertise. But are there other ways? Are there places you can hang posters on campus? Are there groups, either like through the school or through the wider community, depending on what you're doing, that you can market to? How can you get that information out to people? So consider those little details. And again, work with members of your chapter. If you have a social media chair, a communication chair, or that's your secretary or one of your secretaries does that, start communicating that idea to them, because they might have some thoughts that you may not consider. How are we determining the success of this? So that's like, what monetary gain are we getting for this to be successful? So for a restaurant fundraiser, what makes it worth it to continue doing that? For Candygrams, how much money do we make in a way that, how much money made back is our point of saying, like, this was good and we should do this again? Is there a point where maybe we're not making enough? If we're losing money, we should obviously not do that one, but is there a threshold of money that we're making? And there should be. If you're making, I would say, less than $50 on Candygrams, maybe not the best fundraiser. If we only make $10 or $20, it's a lot of work for $10 or $20. So set those limits for yourself. How can we keep ourselves accountable? So again, we're talking a little bit about the money side of it. Where's our threshold of success? But also as members, how are we making sure that all of our active members are putting in their weight, so to speak, on helping out with these fundraising events? I know we're like, I know a lot of chapters will have service requirements. I know my chapter, we also had a fundraising requirement because we had consistent fundraisers. You had to participate in 2 to 3 of them a semester. We had like 8 to 10 events a semester, and you had to participate in 2 or 3 of them. And that was how we held ourselves accountable, was by making sure that was an express requirement for being a member in good standing. And that really helped to make sure that everyone was on the same page about why the fundraiser was important and how to support it. And then last, how can we make it a bigger event or do more? And again, that's looking at those other communities that you can tap into, especially with bigger events or with more widely accessible fundraisers. So maybe you had a successful bake sale and it was just for the band. Is that something you can translate into a wider community, like maybe in the library or the student union having a bake sale, or a community space on like an election day? That's one that I've seen some bands do in the past that you can make some money at. What are ways that you can make it bigger and do more? Like I said earlier, I'm also a big advocate for getting out in the community and making sure that we are being not just positive members of the band, but being positive members of the community as a whole. So, can our fundraiser contribute to that? How to make a successful fundraiser. Finally, after it's all done, review and evaluate how successful this fundraiser was. And we kind of talked about it before on the previous slide, but here are some questions to consider. First, did we stay within the budget? If we had an excursion outside of the budget, how much was it by? Because that can really determine whether or not something is an appropriate fundraiser to keep. If we strayed a little out of the budget, let's say we allotted $30 for candy and we needed $35 for candy. Okay, well, we can budget for that in the future. Let's say we ran a talent show and we paid $100 to buy items for a reception afterwards, but we only made $30 total off of that talent show. Maybe that's a budget consideration we need to make. Did we raise enough money? Again, have a threshold set. We don't want to be putting in a lot of time, effort, and money into an event where we don't even raise back what we lost, especially if it's a fundraising event, because that's the whole point. Is this something we would want to do again? And that's both like, did we enjoy doing it? And also, did we have the manpower to do it, so to speak? So were the people running the event able to do it in a way that was healthy and not overworking them? If yes, sounds good. If that's something that was maybe a bit too big or too much for the chapter, we either reconsider how we do it or maybe we table that until we have either a larger membership base or more people who are available to do that type of fundraiser. And then last, are there changes we want to try in the future? So if something goes well, how can we expand it? That can be a consideration. If something went well, but maybe didn't make as much money as we thought we could, how can we downsize it or alter it in a way that we are making that money, but also, again, not expending extra time, money, effort where we don't need to be? So, has anyone thought of new fundraiser ideas, and would you like to share them? Or other considerations. It doesn't necessarily have to be new fundraising ideas. If you would also like to share any considerations or ideas or ask any questions, I'm here to answer. And again, I have the chat open. Feel free to chuck it in there while I sip on my water slowly.
While you're sipping on your water, I'm just gonna say that it's very helpful to document all those like successes and failures and all the process throughout this, because it allows future treasurers and future fundraising chairs and future ways and means committees to have that knowledge base and be able to create that budget, be able to create these fundraisers to be more effective for your chapters.
Absolutely. That's one of those things. I recommend this when I'm visiting with chapters. Um, an officer binder, that is a perfect thing for that officer binder. And then if you also, here, I'll pull it back up again. On the budget sheet, if you just want to make a quick note before you move on, great place to note it. It would be here in your fundraising expenses. Maybe after you have this proposed, you leave a comment in Google and you say what worked and what didn't and why. And then expand upon that, like what has been consistently working in that chapter or in that treasurer binder. And update it regularly. Things change from year to year, especially I went to college pre-COVID. I know it's way different now. I graduated 5 years ago. Maybe something I did for my chapter when I was treasurer does not work anymore, and they need to take that out. That's fine, but they shouldn't be looking back at budgets and still have a line item for something that we were doing 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that no longer works. All right. Anyone else want to share, talk? We're ending a little early, so which was intentional. Don't worry. I wanted people to be able to use the bathroom. I'm a fast talker. All right. So thank you all for coming and talking with me about budgets and ledgers and fundraisers. If you ever want to reach out and talk to me about this or anything, I'm happy to answer questions. I love talking budgets and fundraisers. I'm a nerd about that kind of stuff, but I also like talking about other TV Sigma stuff because I'm a nerd about this too. Um, my contact information's at the bottom. My email's my name, and that's my cell number. I don't have social media. I don't use social media, so you're not going to find me there. And if you do, that's not me. Please report that account. Um, thank you so much for coming out and listening to me yap at you a little bit about monies and how to handle them. I'll leave this up for like 2 more seconds, but I think this is the main room, so I want to also be cognizant of that and pull that down in a minute. So I'll leave that up for a minute, take a picture, take a screenshot, and then I'll get out of y'all's hair.